Most people think courage is the absence of fear. I'm 78 years old, and I can tell you that's completely wrong. Courage isn't what happens when you stop being afraid. It's what happens when you move anyway. And the difference between those two things will determine whether you spend your remaining years truly alive or simply waiting to die. Everything you've been told about overcoming fear is designed to keep you stuck. But I'm going to show you why that is, and what actually works instead. Before I do that though, I need to tell you about a Tuesday morning that changed everything. I'm recording this because I spent 43 years afraid. Not of anything dramatic, just afraid of the small things that add up to a life. Afraid to speak up in meetings. Afraid to book the trip. Afraid to say what I actually thought. And here's what nobody tells you. Fear doesn't announce itself. It just quietly shrinks your world until you start calling that shrinking being realistic. I don't want that for you. I don't have decades left to waste, and neither do you. So if this sounds familiar, do me a favor. Leave a comment below. Just one word. Fear. That's it. Because I need to know I'm not talking to myself here. For most of my life, things looked fine from the outside. I had a job. I paid my bills on time. I showed up where I was supposed to show up. People thought I was doing well. But inside, I was running a very quiet calculation every single day. Will this be safe? Will this be okay? Will anyone judge me? And the answer was always the same. Better not risk it. Better stay small. Better keep your head down. I wasn't living. I was managing risk. And I told myself that was wisdom. It was a Tuesday. March. I remember because the daffodils were just starting to come up in the yard. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee, and my daughter called. She was planning a trip to Ireland. She wanted me to come. And without thinking, I said what I always said. Maybe next time. She didn't push. She just said okay and hung up. And I sat there with my coffee getting cold, staring at those daffodils, and I realized something. I'd been saying, maybe next time, for 43 years. And there wasn't going to be a next time. Not really. That's the moment everything shifted. Because here's the big lie we all believe. I have time. We say it without even thinking. I'll do that when things settle down. I'll take the risk when I'm more prepared. I'll speak up when I'm more confident. But here's the truth. You don't have time. None of us do. Every single day you wait is a day you don't get back. And fear loves that lie. Fear wants you to believe there's always tomorrow. Because tomorrow never comes. Let me tell you about someone I knew. His name was Robert. We worked together for 15 years. He wanted to write. He talked about it all the time. He had notebooks full of ideas. But he was afraid. Afraid it wouldn't be good enough. Afraid people would laugh. Afraid he'd waste his time. So he waited. He waited for retirement. He waited for the right moment. He waited until he felt ready. He retired at 67. He had his notebooks. He had his time. And then, 8 months later, he had a stroke. He never wrote a single word. I went to see him in the hospital. He couldn't speak much, but he managed to say this. I thought I had time. That's what fear costs you. Not just the thing you didn't do, but the person you never became. You want to know what I actually regret? Not the big dramatic things. I regret the dinner invitation I turned down because I was tired. I regret not telling my father I was proud of him before he died. I regret the 20 years I spent in a job I hated because it felt safe. I regret not learning to play piano when my hands still worked well. I regret the argument I didn't have because I was afraid of conflict. I regret the woman I never asked out because I assumed she'd say no. I regret every single time I chose comfort over aliveness. And here's the thing. Every one of those moments felt small at the time. Insignificant. Easy to postpone. But they weren't small. They were my life. And I gave them away to fear. So what actually changes things? Not affirmations. Not visualization. Not waiting until you feel ready. What changes things is movement. Small, repeated, deliberate movement in the direction of what scares you. You don't need to climb a mountain. You need to take one step. Then another. Then another. And each step teaches you something fear never wanted you to learn. You're more capable than you think. Here's what that looked like for me. I booked the Ireland trip. I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel brave. I just clicked the button. Then I told 3 people I was going, so I couldn't back out. Then I showed up at the airport, even though my hands were shaking. And here's what happened. Nothing bad. I didn't die. I didn't fail. I just went. And on the second day, standing in front of the cliffs of Moher with the wind trying to knock me over, I realized something. I'd been afraid of the wrong thing. I wasn't afraid of traveling. I was afraid of discovering I'd wasted my life not traveling. That's what fear actually protects. Not you, but the story you've been telling yourself about why you can't. Now I do small things that scare me on purpose. I talk to strangers in line. I take a different route home. I say what I actually think in conversations. I try foods I can't pronounce. None of this is dramatic. None of it is heroic. But every single time I do it, my world gets a little bigger. And every time I don't, it gets a little smaller. That's the choice, not once, but every single day. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to sell everything and move to Bali. You need to do one thing today that scares you a little. Just one. Maybe it's sending the email you've been drafting for 3 weeks. Maybe it's signing up for the class. Maybe it's telling someone the truth. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you move. Because clarity comes from action, not thinking. You can't think your way into courage. You have to act your way into it. And yes, you have responsibilities. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm telling you that your fear has been lying about what's actually at risk. Most of the time, the worst-case scenario is embarrassment, discomfort, someone saying no. And you can survive all of that. What you can't survive is getting to the end and realizing you never really tried. Here's what I know now that I didn't know at 40 or 50 or even 65. Fear doesn't go away. It just gets quieter when you stop listening to it. And the more you move, the quieter it gets. You're not broken because you're afraid. You're human, but you're also capable of doing the thing anyway. And that's where your life is. Not on the other side of fear, but in the middle of it. Moving anyway. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Not someday, today. Before you close this video, decide on one small thing you've been afraid to do. Write it down. Then do it within the next 24 hours. And come back here and tell me what it was. I'll read every single comment. Because I want to know. I want to know that this mattered, that you moved, that you chose aliveness over safety. Even just once. I'm 78. I don't know how many more videos I'll make, but I know this one matters. Because somewhere in these words is the permission you've been waiting for. The permission to try, to fail, to be afraid and do it anyway. You don't need anyone else to give you that permission. But if it helps, here it is. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to take the risk. You're allowed to disappoint people. You're allowed to choose yourself. And you're allowed to start today. What's the one thing you've been too afraid to do?